The Galapagos tortoise is among the giants of the reptile class. Evolving over millions of years on its remote island habitat, this tortoise had almost no contact with the outside world until the permanent discovery of the island in 1535 by humans led to rapid changes with which the tortoise could not cope. Only an immense conservation effort saved them from extinction. The Galapagos tortoise is one of the largest species of tortoise in the world. Males can weigh more than 500 pounds and reach 6 feet in length, while females weigh a comparatively smaller 250 pounds. The giant shell is obviously the most important characteristic of the tortoise's anatomy. This massive structure is fused to the ribs and covered in segmented horny scutes. The bands on the shell cannot be used to determine the animal's lifespan, since they wear off over time. The tortoise's shell has two types of adaptations. The domed shells, which is completely round, restrict the movement of the head. These tortoises live in humid areas with diverse vegetation in reach. The saddleback shells curl up near the neck, which allows them to stretch out their necks and feed on higher vegetation. These tortoises live in arid regions where the vegetation is sparser and the tortoises must work harder to reach it. Restricted in what it can do by a slow metabolism, the Galapagos tortoise leads a rather sluggish and languid life. It sleeps up to 16 hours a day and then spends the rest of the time either feeding or resting. As a cold-blooded reptile, the tortoise lacks the adaptations to properly regulate its internal body temperature, so it must spend a lot of time wallowing in mud, soaking in water, or exposing its body to the rays of the sun. One of the more interesting facts is that the Galapagos tortoise can migrate between different elevations of the island throughout the day in response to temperature. These tortoises maintain a very specific, regimented schedule from which they hardly deviate. By following the same routine every day, their heavy bodies carve out distinctive paths in the landscape which become semi-permanent features. The Galapagos tortoise is slow and cumbersome, but the size of an adult obviously confers an enormous advantage against most predators. When it's seriously threatened, the tortoise will pull back into the shell for protection, but contrary to some beliefs, the tortoise cannot leave the shell, since it's fused to the body. The Galapagos tortoise does not appear to cooperate in any substantive way with other members of the same species, but it does tolerate their presence since they feed and rest in close proximity. However, when mating season arrives, male tortoises engage in a competition by stretching out their heads. The tortoise with the higher head is considered to be the winner of this contest, and that is usually the end of it. But if the loser does not concede right away, then hostilities might break out into a bitter brawl, which consists of biting and nipping. The Galapagos tortoise makes very few sounds except for hoarse grunts during copulation, harsh sounds during aggressive encounters, and a hissing noise made by the expulsion of air as the tortoise withdraws into its shell. The Galapagos tortoise is endemic to the island chain of the Galapagos, about 563 miles west off the coast of Ecuador and an official part of that country. 5 or 6 species are found on the main island of Isabela, including the Volcan wolf tortoise, the Sierra Negra tortoise, the Volcan Darwin tortoise, the Volcan Alcedo tortoise, and the Iguana Cove tortoise. Several other islands contain one species each, including Chatham Island, Pinzon Island, and Hood Island. The Galapagos is a hotspot of volcanic activity. It contains Volcan wolf, Volcan Alcedo, and many others. The climate is generally hot and dry, but frequent spells of rainfall throughout the year do keep life flourishing. The El Niño weather event also befalls the island chain every 3 to 7 years. The Galapagos tortoise is an herbivorous grazer that has many unique adaptations to cope with the difficult environment in which it lives. By storing excess resources in its body, the tortoise can go without food or water for an entire year. The Galapagos tortoise eats many different types of fruits, flowers, leaves, and grass, some of which are so dangerous that they can burn the human skin. The prickly pear cactus appears to be a particular favorite. Lacking teeth, the tortoise grinds up food with the tough outer parts of the mouth. For millions of years, the Galapagos tortoise evolved in a habitat that was almost completely free of large mammals. Its sheer size and giant protective shell usually provided adequate protection against everything else. But after the discovery of the island, people indiscriminately hunted the turtle for food and introduced non-native predators to the island. These new mammals either preyed upon the tortoise directly or out-competed it for precious food. Before the arrival of people, the Galapagos hawk was the only creature to prey upon the juveniles and eggs. However, as people poured onto the island, they introduced pigs, cats, rats, and other species, which gorged on the eggs in enormous numbers, causing populations to plummet. Upon the arrival of the mating season, which usually lasts between the months of January and August, the male will locate and track down a female from her scent. He will then initiate courtship in a rather violent manner by ramming her with the front of his shell and then nipping at her legs. Once copulation is complete, the female may travel several miles to the drier lowlands and then deposit 10 eggs, which are about the size of a tennis ball, into a 12-inch sandy hole in the ground. The temperature of the soil appears to play a role in determining the sex of the offspring, as hotter soil will lead to more females. After an incubation period of about 3 to 8 months, the young tortoises emerge from the eggs, measuring about 2.4 inches in size. Since they receive no other parental care, the first challenge in their life is to dig their way toward the surface, which takes about a month. The nutrient-rich yolk sac will sustain them for several more months, after which time they must learn to fend for themselves. The Galapagos tortoise is exceptionally slow-growing animals that take about 20 to 25 years to fully mature, but they compensate for this with an incredible lifespan. The oldest recorded lifespan was more than 150 years. Unfortunately, most perish within the first 10 years of life.